So the first one here is Gentiles and heathens the same? If the Jewish nation were to reach the heathens or Gentiles before Jesus sacrificed himself, would the Gentiles be required to keep the ceremonial feasts?
So I'm happy to jump in if that's okay, real quick.
Oh, go for it.
So the Gentiles is referring to anybody who's not Jewish. It's more like an ethnicity, like more like their bloodline. Whereas heathen is referring to anyone who doesn't subscribe to like Christianity or the Jewish faith. So it's more focusing on people's beliefs, their faiths. So people who don't believe that, like pagans and all, then they might be treated as heathens. So there can be an overlap. So the Greeks, the Romans during Jesus's time, they were both Gentiles and they were largely heathen. But if one of those Gentiles converted to Christianity, then they would, let's say, no longer be a heathen. The second question is, Robert asks, is if the Jewish nation were to reach the heathens or Gentiles before Jesus sacrificed himself, would the Gentiles be required to keep the ceremonial feast? So you talk about that period before Jesus's death. Would they have to keep those feasts? And the answer would be yes. If you read Exodus, God, like Exodus 14, for example, when God gives the laws regarding Passover, God talks about how an outsider, stranger, could participate in the Passover, and there were ways which non-Jews could become, in a sense, part of the congregation, part of God's holy people. We see this happen with Rahab. We see this happen with Ruth. So there are examples where people, outsiders, sort of become a part of God's people, and they keep these traditions. They sort of keep the Jewish faith, which involved the ceremonial feasts and all these things. And then once Jesus would have died on the cross, those shadows would be replaced by the true thing that happened, the main thing that they're representing, and then they would go away.